If you're wondering, yes, I did just collect up all the videos from rating all fighters based on everything and then I combined them, but you still want to watch because I changed some ratings. Anyway, continue with the video. But first, I need to clarify a couple things. I won't be covering literally everything about each character, but I will be covering character design, character uniqueness, and the character's lore or personality. Now let's start off with our first character. Starting off with Sword's design, he has a very sleek and clean look, which makes sense because he has the second newest character design in fighting. It's a little bit sad that his knight helmet thing isn't canonically welded to his head anymore, but whatever, it just looks better. The way his cape is animated is really flowy, and honestly, it looks amazing. When I first saw it, I was honestly a little stunned, and that's not even a joke. Very basic knight design, but it's actually done greatly. 8 out of 10 design-wise. Uniqueness, though, the devs did the best they could. I mean, how unique can you make a dude with a sword? You can't really do much with that. Swords are like the most common weapon. They are just medium-sized blades that have nothing special to them. The devs actually did really good for what they were given. His reworked passive is honestly what saves his uniqueness score. If he didn't have his passive and he still had the old passive, I probably would have given him a 2 out of 10 uniqueness. But since his passive gives him much stronger versions of his normal moves, I'm gonna give him a 4 out of 10 uniqueness. Yeah, I know, not that much higher, but whatever. Lore and personality wise, this section includes relations, by the way. I mean, he doesn't have all that much. He has basically no lore, but I guess Medkit and Rocket are his friends. You hear that? Sword and Rocket are friends. Nothing more. Anyways, Venom Shank is his adopted father. That makes Banhammer, Valk, and Dom his cousins. And also, he just knows Darkheart. He doesn't really have a relationship with him, but he knows Darkheart. His personality is basically just a cheesy guy who cares for his friends, and is also a little shy. Not much to really go off, but solid. 6 out of 10 lore and personality. As I've previously said, Skateboard's design is basic. I know he's old, but geez. Sure, he just looks like a regular skateboarder, but they could have done a little bit more, right?
It seems Dan is stepping in to talk. Knee pads, shoulder pads, elbow pads, and a helmet that shouldn't be able to be taken off. That last part is actually really stupid. There really just isn't much we could say about Skateboarder's design. It's just kinda bland.
5 out of 10 design. Uniqueness is definitely Skateboard's strong suit, though. Tell me how you incorporate a skateboarder into a fighting game. How much are you gonna do besides have him smack people with a skateboard? Well, fighting actually did a great job at making him unique. The trick gimmick when you're riding your skateboard is honestly just what saves him. If you couldn't do tricks, his uniqueness would definitely be lower. Skateboard's probably gonna get the highest uniqueness score out of this whole video. 8 out of 10 uniqueness. Based off all the information I found, Skateboard is basically just friends with all the playground fighters. I wasn't able to find as much proof that he was friends with any other character though, so yeah. He is apparently a gang leader though, and for how goofy this game is, that's kind of funny. I don't know why, but there's so little information that I could actually find about this goober that I don't even know his general personality. So due to lack of info, I'm gonna need to say 5 out of 10 lore and personality.
This time I'll be starting us off. Biograft's design almost perfectly shows off what a high-tech killer robot would look like. But there's just one eeny-weeny tiny problem. He's a little square-like and outdated looking, at least compared to more of the recent designs in fighting. He is getting a redesign, which is great, but that's probably the biggest gripe we have about his design right now.
7.5 out of 10 design.
For me, Biograft's biggest source of uniqueness comes from his teleportation. His E and basically his Q both teleport him somehow. Of course, this can be extremely OP if used correctly, but it is also one of the things that makes Biograft Biograft. Even if it does seem a little too strong for the game, I am glad it is in the game. Pretty solid uniqueness, honestly. 6 out of 10. Bio doesn't really have a personality because he's a robot, but the lore behind what created him is pretty interesting. Subspace created every single Biograft in order to destroy his enemies, basically, and he just uses some of them as basic servants. That's kind of interesting, but not much to it, so 5 out of 10 lore and personality.
Hopefully we can all agree that Katana looks very cool, but if you inspect his design even more, you can't help but notice that he's a little flat looking. It's kinda like the situation with Biograft, but even worse in my opinion. When Bio has a bunch of orange streaks going through his body, Katana just has flat clothes. Katana also is getting a redesign, and that is also great for him, cause he kind of needs it. 6.5 out of 10 design. Katana's uniqueness is minimal, to say the least. The most unique thing about him is his passive. Once you hit someone enough times with your M1, his passive activates, giving them temporary slowness and damaging them a little bit. This definitely helps Katana ensure his kills because he's very slow and has no mobility moves whatsoever. His passive is extremely useful and, honestly, pretty unique. But the rest of his kit is just nothing really. A counter, a grapple to pull people in, and another slash that gives shield. I'm gonna need to say 5 out of 10 uniqueness.
As for Katana's lore and personality, he actually has a lot about him. The only person Katana considers a friend is Hyperlaser. Vinestaff, Shuriken, and Slingshot all see Katana as a friend, but Katana doesn't see him in the same way. Scythe is just annoying as Katana because she bugs him about rejoining the Church of the True Eye, as Katana was an ex-member of it. Lastly, Katana knows Broker through it, and Broker wants to kill him due to him leaving it. Although it has been hinted that Katana and Broker are actually related to each other. As for Katana's personality, it's clear that he's more of a loner. That's pretty much all we could get from him. Nothing else is clearly stated about him in any place we could find.
8 out of 10 lore and personality.
Come on! Can I please do some of the Banhammer section?
No, don't ask again.
Why not?
Banhammer's my character.
Please.
Stop asking. Nobody can say that Banhammer's design is boring in any way. It's cool, dark armor, not to mention his actual Banhammer. That is the most detailed part about him, and I love it. Of course, they could have done a little more with the armor, I won't not say that, but it still looks amazing. I cannot rate his design lower than 7.5, but I'm gonna say 8. 8 out of 10 design. Let's just be honest, is Banhammer unique at all? Not really. The most unique thing about him is his finisher because you execute people if they're at 50% of their health and shield combined. But that's basically all he has. I can't even talk about this for longer, it's just 3 out of 10. Okay, hold on a second. So somehow in November of 2024 when I made this, I failed to realize that first of all, Ban is the most self-sufficient character in the game, but also he's the most vulnerable, and this is mostly because of his inability to gain shield naturally. He has to attack people in order to gain shield back, which is why literally all of his moveset can give him shield. And I'm gonna reiterate, he's the most self-sufficient character while still being the most vulnerable. So I'll give him a 6.5 out of 10 uniqueness. Alright, continue the video. We actually have a lot of info. Wind Force is his mom, the rest of the swords are his aunts and uncles, the Flipside brothers are his cousins, and he's enemies with Scythe and Broker. Those are for obvious reasons because they're both criminals. The reason why he's enemies with them because they're criminals is because he's actually the warden of Banland. He considers himself a tyrant for some reason and is really cocky about his powers. He will try to put weaker people down for being weak. Also, he's 6'11". How are you physically 6'11"? To be fair, he's not even a regular human, but still.
Honestly, 8.5 out of 10 lore and personality.
Rocket is one of those characters that hasn't had their design changed in a really long time. And that shows. Thankfully, he is getting a redesign, but right now, he looks like he has it rough. He has nothing besides some goggles, 2 prosthetics, yes, he most definitely has it rough, and some weird chest plate looking shoulder pads, sort of. This design most definitely could be better, and honestly, his prosthetics carry. Those look decent enough though, so I'm gonna say 5 out of 10 design. Like you probably could have guessed, Rocket isn't the most unique fighter. He's just a guy with a rocket, he can shoot a big rocket, he can propel with his rockets, and then he can shoot 3 tiny rockets. And then he can basically summon a bunch of extra rockets for his finisher. And his finisher has been getting a ton of changes lately. Seriously, devs, please just pick one. But the thing that we have now, I think it's pretty cool. I like it. But seriously, there's little to no things to make Rocket very unique, at least compared to every other fighter. Maybe besides his splash damage. Besides the fact that he shares the same amount of health as Bio. Not total health, just health. I'm really unable to say anything good for this. So, I'll say 3.5 out of 10 uniqueness. For Rocket's lore and personality, Zuka is his adoptive father, and Sword is his best friend. He met Sword because of Zuka's connection with Venom Shank. Other than that, he's apparently hyperactive, clingy, and hard-headed. He additionally was a former playgrounder until he left because of certain incidents that happened. Probably had something to do with him losing his limbs. And he doesn't like any playground fighter. Honestly, really good. It's just not that much is actually explained, so I'll say 6 out of 10. Slingshot looks okay, I guess. The most notable thing about his design is probably his actual slingshot. That isn't always a good thing because either the character is bland so the gear outshines it, or both of them are amazing. And in this case, the gear outshines it. The only other thing about his design is his horns resemble cat ears. That is literally it. But Slingshot is supposed to get a rework soon too. But for now, I'm just gonna give him a 5 out of 10 design. Slingshot is genuinely the most unique character when it comes to mobility though. His E is a dash, he has a double jump, and if you recast jump after your double jump, then you basically start airwalking. These moves are also just essential to his kit because without them, then he would die way too easily. Other than his mobility, he can also charge up his M1s, which not many characters can do. He's also the only one that can charge up his attacks and have them do more damage instead of just launching more things. Except for Skateboard, but nobody likes Skateboard. It's genuinely surprising how unique this character actually is, so I'm gonna give him a 7 out of 10 uniqueness. For Slingshot's lore and personality, he's close friends with Skateboard, he's friends and roommates with Vinestaff and Shuriken, and Katana is his neighbor and one-sided friend. Slingshot is also energetic, responsible because he owns a cafe, friendly, and really likes shoes. That's pretty good, just not that much, so I'll say 5.5 out of 10 lore and personality. Hyperlaser is kinda in the same boat as Slingshot. His gun heavily outshines his body design. The only notable thing about his body design is his helmet, but that's just his helmet, so it's not even that pronounced. He is gonna be getting a redesign, but that won't help that much. The redesign is probably just gonna make his already existing features more complex. That obviously won't help him from being any less boring. 5.5 out of 10 design. Hyperlaser equals slow guy with one-shotting laser. Uniqueness, 10%. His uniqueness entirely comes from his E and wireframes. With his E, he can explode a small area around him, or if he holds it down, then he can teleport almost anywhere he wants. And I'm pretty sure he's the only character in the game who can give wireframe, so that is pretty cool. But other than those two things, that is literally it. Nothing else. He just can barely move and has a one-shotting laser. 5 out of 10 uniqueness. Hyperlaser's lore and personality is actually pretty deep. First off, he's friends and drinking buddies with Katana, and he's co-workers with Bio and Sub. At first glance, it appears that he's just pretty stern and always questioning his fellow fighters, or apparently scolding them. But he's actually doing it because he doesn't want to lose them like he lost some of the people in his past. Quote-unquote past. His past must have been very, very gruesome because he's gone through severe injuries to the point where his horns are almost completely gone, which means he's basically almost dead. He's blind and he physically can't cry. How are you so injured that you cannot cry anymore? 7.5 out of 10. Finally, a design that I can't really talk bad about. In my opinion, Shuriken has the second best design out of every single ranged character in the game. You definitely know who the first one is. Although, I do have to say that a lot of his design, except for his tattoos, aren't that popping. It seems a little boring, honestly. So, his tattoos being there while also adding a hint of color definitely helps. Also, I'm pretty sure he got them because of Vinestaff's cursed arm and he wants to feel connected to her, but we'll talk about that more in lore and personality. Shuriken's also supposed to get a redesign to be quote-unquote more lore accurate, and I am very, very excited for when that comes out. Pretty good design. 6.5 out of 10. Shuriken's uniqueness completely stems from his mobility like Slingshot, but to a crazier extent. Until you take his mobility into account, he's just a regular guy who throws shurikens around. But his passive automatically gives him 20% haste and bounce at all times. And his Q is a grapple that can move him to almost any place in the map, not to mention his E. His E literally creates a shadow clone. What else do you want me to say about this? If that doesn't scream unique character, I don't know what does. Other than those things, as I said, he's just a regular guy with a bunch of shurikens. 6.5 out of 10 uniqueness. As for his lore and personality, Vinestaff is his biological sister, Slingshot is his friend, and Katana is his one-sided friend as well. There's little to no info about Shuriken's personality, but he is a thief that only steals from other thieves. And also, after doing a little more research, I found out that him, Vinestaff, and Slingshot all leave gifts at Katana's door so he knows that he's appreciated. He's one of the loudest snorers out of every single fighter. And also, once the reworks come around, he's gonna become a vigilante instead of a thief. But something that kinda pains me is that his canonical horn color is pink instead of green, and he just paints them green so he can become the vigilante at night. But anyway, 6.5 out of 10 lore and personality. Despite how much I love Banhammer resulting in me hating Scythe, I can't be biased in this. This design is just beautiful. The blade of the Scythe just popping out as soon as you go into Scythe mode. It's somehow just transforming into a rifle. The boots with golden accents. That jacket. Mwah, chef's kiss. That jacket is actually amazing. Not to mention her horn design perfectly complementing the shape of her hat. Look at that. It fits. It just fits like a glove. It's so amazing. And this skin is so detailed that at my first time seeing Scythe, I didn't even realize she had a missing arm. That missing arm looking cool itself too. It's just so peak. 10 out of 10. You know exactly what I'm gonna say for uniqueness. Since Scythe has multiple identities because she's a wanted criminal, she obviously can switch between multiple weapons reflecting her identities. Sometimes she's Scythe, sometimes she's Rifle. These modes individually aren't very unique, but the fact that she has more than one mode for gears, not just for a single gear, like multiple gears, that probably will never happen again in the entirety of fighting. For that reason, I'm gonna give her a 6.5 out of 10 uniqueness.
As for Scythe's lore and personality, she's Medkit and Broker's boss in the Church of the True Eye, is Banhammer's mortal enemy, likes Vinestaff but Vinestaff hates her, or has threatened people like Rocket or Subspace for talking down upon or threatening Medkit and Broker. I wasn't able to find much information about her personality, but I do know that she takes very little things seriously until people start threatening her Church of the True Eye mates. And as I was blabbering on about in her uniqueness section, she has multiple identities being Scythe and Rifle. These are because she's obviously a wanted criminal like I said before. And that's also the reason why Banhammer is her mortal enemy, since he's the warden of Banland. She would have gotten a much higher score if we actually knew her entire personality or like her past or something, but for now I'm gonna say 6 out of 10. Medkit's design fits. Do I like it that much? It's pretty okay. Basically, the only part that I don't like about it is his pants, because his pants just look weird. I don't know what it is about them to me, but it looks like he has no shoes on. I almost didn't realize he had shoes on the first time I saw his design. Everything else from the eye patch shape to the color scheme is good though. His design is simple, but in a good way. 7 out of 10. As for Medkit's uniqueness, well, he's the only fighter with a 9mm. Actually, that might be a deagle. Anyway, okay, but genuinely, he is the only fighter that can shoot people and heal them with a gun. He shoots people and heals them if they're on their team. That makes no sense, but it is unique, so I'll take that. He can teleport with his Q. Also, he's one of the few fighters that can headshot people. That's basically it. He has a gun that he can somehow heal with, he can teleport, and he can headshot with a gun. It's kinda solid, I guess. Better than people like Rocket. 6 out of 10 uniqueness. For Medkit's lore and personality, he has a ton to work with. To put his personality simply, he's not social, isn't funny, doesn't display or convey emotions well, gets annoyed easily, definitely expresses concern for other fighters but barely, and has PTSD. We'll get into why he has PTSD soon. For Medkit's relationships, Banhammer is trying to hunt him because he left Blackrock and you're not supposed to leave your faction. Medkit feels apathetic towards him. He thinks Boombox is annoying, is close friends with Rocket and Sword to the point where they're almost like brothers, is kinda wary about Scythe because Scythe is his superior in the Church of the True Eye, but he did create her prosthetic limbs. Finally, Subspace is his ex-co-worker that used to work with him in Blackrock. Neither of them ever liked each other, but then they had a fight which caused Medkit to lose his eye and Subspace was extremely injured afterwards. That's the reason why he also has PTSD, and it's also the reason why he left Blackrock. I forgot to mention Broker, who's his colleague in the Church of the True Eye, but they aren't really friends. If you're wondering what the Church of the True Eye is, it's a cult that's in fighting, and the only one that we actually know exists. I'm pretty sure the only members we know about are Medkit, Scythe, Broker, and the overall leader, Overseer. I have heard that Overseer isn't actually the leader, but he is the one that they worship though. Overseer is obviously a reference to the old Roblox items that share the same name. That took me like 5 tries! Due to Medkit by far having the most information about his lore and personality out of every fighter, at least in my opinion, he's earning the first 10 out of 10 in lore and personality. At the time of recording this, Boombox just got a rework and a redesign a month ago. And comparing the two, he looks way better now. Despite him basically not having any new details besides that little strap on his back and the things on his ears, his existing features were heightened so much. His design used to be pretty lifeless except for that digital eye thing he had going on, but now it's like he's an actual character instead of just a random design somebody decided to come up with. Amazing upgrade from the last design. 7 out of 10. Boombox might just be the most unique character in the game now, and that's not even a joke. He He uses sound waves to attack people, and also his sound waves can give buffs, can debuff, they can do basically anything. Considering every single thing, he's somehow able to push and pull people with his sound waves, then he can temporarily float into a smackdown with his Q, still utilizing sound waves. This should not be possible at all. Not to mention his ult. Eventually, once he gets 6 charges, which are basically just sound waves, all piled up and charged up, he can do another smackdown, which pulls people towards him on the enemy team and gives all his teammates things like finisher points. Finisher points. This is obviously a game, so it really doesn't matter what's possible or not. And finishers wouldn't even exist, but like, what? How? And also, before his charges, he just has a radioactive type of aura around him. That radioactivity giving his teammates shield. Of course, he's a support character, so this is inevitable, but the amount of things that Boombox can do with just using sound waves, especially for a support character, is insane. 9 out of 10 uniqueness. For Boombox's lore and personality, he likes Medkit, but Medkit doesn't like him. He doesn't like Sub or Hyper because they quote-unquote give bad vibes, and he's friends with Slingshot and Skateboard. Also, he's short. Genuinely though, he seems like one of the most laid-back fighters, especially because he's one of the few who hasn't actually killed anyone before. Yeah, his lore and personality is pretty shallow. Decent, but shallow. 5.5 out of 10 lore and personality. Subspace's design is nice. It gets the job done. There isn't much special here. There aren't many designs like his just because most designs have some sort of armor around them, or one big accessory. The only thing you can call a big accessory on Subspace is his container that holds his poison. But the coolest part of his design, in my opinion, has to be his horns. He has 4 horns, which is already rare. I'm pretty sure there's only one other character in the game who has that, and that's Rocket. But instead of his horns just being normal, they have their own unique shape, while also being 4 horns instead of 2. Of course, all horns have their own unique shape, but his almost wrap around his face as if they're a cage. I might be thinking a little too hard about this, but that could be symbolism on how he tries to keep his poison in order to do even more damage, even though it's slowly whittling his lifespan down. Yeah, I definitely thought too hard, but still a pretty decent design. Also, Subspace is one of the fighters that are getting a redesign too. I'm very, very grateful for that. Compared to this redesign, his current design is actually garbage. He goes from having skin-tight clothes to baggy clothes. And of course, that might not seem like it has anything to do with this, but these quote-unquote skin-tight clothes barely look like clothes. They're so tight on him that they just look like skin that's differently colored. And those barely noticeable patterns on his shirt are way more noticeable on the redesign. Plus, his face looks a lot more damaged and angry because he's an evil scientist who's slowly dying. Anyways, 6 out of 10 design. At first glance, Subspace isn't really unique at all, aside from the fact that he's the only fighter that does lingering damage, if you can even call it that. And then you remember he's an inventor who can make several different weapons, and then look at his finisher. A literal black hole. How? He goes from making poison to creating an entire black hole. But except for those 2 things, he doesn't have much else. 6 out of 10 uniqueness. Obviously, starting off Subspace's lore and personality, we have the situation with Medkit that I was talking about earlier in Medkit's lore. But also something I didn't mention in Medkit's lore is how him and Subspace discovered crystals which they now use to power their gears, the Biograft, and that Coil stole. One of the big reasons why him and Medkit started bickering and then got into a fight was because Medkit wanted to use the crystals for healing, while Subspace wanted to use the crystals for chaos. Yes, these crystals are the same crystals that are between their horns, and also on top of Coil's horn. For Sub's personality though, he usually has no regard for human life when it comes to his experiments. He's pretty egotistical, loves chaos, and is probably mentally unstable. 8.5 out of 10 lore and personality. Vinestaff is one of the few characters in the game that I can't really say has anything bad about her design. There's almost no empty space here. What would usually be just blank, flat color is fixed by the pattern of flowers that's all over her shirt. And what otherwise would be empty leg space, she has giant boots on. And like Shuri, she has that waist tie on her. On top of that, she's one of the 3 characters, the other 2 being Scythe and Medkit, who have horns that sprout into different horns. I genuinely see no problems with this design, but it's just not the best one that they could have made. She is getting a redesign because the devs wanted her to be more lore accurate looking, just like Shuri, and the concept art for that one looks great, but of course, it won't be part of the rankings. 8 out of 10 design. Vinestaff, despite not being as unique as Boombox in my opinion, is still one of the most unique characters in the game just because of how easily her moveset flows into itself. Every single one of her moves flows into another one seamlessly. After hitting enough M1s, you get an M2 charge. Then you can place a sprout. Those sprouts heal your team. If you use her E onto an M2 or a sprout, then the sprout explodes into a bunch of healing for your team. Then you can combine her finisher with the M2 and E stuff to make so much healing that your team almost never dies. Her Q is the only move that I wouldn't say flows into her kit easily, but the devs had an amazing idea to make her Q still be one of the most unique moves in the game. When Vinestaff uses her Q on you, you get some healing, and also every time you do damage, you get healing and the Vinestaff gets healing as well. Vinestaff is an embodiment of the balance between damage and healing. I know you might be saying, oh, Medkit's definitely a balance between damage and healing, but not really, because you always have to choose one or the other. With Vine, you can do damage, immediately get a sprout, place the sprout, do damage, use E onto the sprout or on players, do damage, and healing. See what I mean now? 8 out of 10 uniqueness. For Vinestaff's lore and personality, Shuri is her brother. She thinks of Sling as a brother. Scythe likes her, but Vine doesn't like Scythe. She's slightly one-sided friends with Katana, enjoys when Boombox plays music during fights, and tries to imitate the way Skateboard acts in order to appear more friendly. Vinestaff very clearly cares about the safety of others a lot, and often makes up plans whenever a fight is about to start for everybody's safety. If they don't have a plan in place, then she gets worried. It was simple, but it had a lot of relationships in place. 7 out of 10 lore and personality. Even before the late design changes, by which I mean the designs on his pants, Coil is easily one of the best designed characters in the game. His design embodies the fashion of Playground and its identity. Despite me being able to praise this design, I don't have that much I can say about it, which leads me to believe that Coil's design is beauty and simplicity. If you really analyze Coil's design, there aren't that many things to it. He has baggy pants, common shoes, a hoodie with ripped sleeves, and then his coils. Also is crystal on his horn. The things that really make his design come to life are just the designs on him. The Cerberus on his hoodie and how every time you switch coil modes it starts glowing. How his coils and some parts of his clothes change color every time you switch coil modes. And also his horn. Plus his coils actually looking like they're a part of his body despite obviously being mechanical. I mean, they literally have tubes and metal around them. This all adds to the effect of his design being great while still being amazing. 9 out of 10 design. Are any of Coil's abilities unique? Not really, no. Except for Speed E because it's the first real dodge in the game, and Regen E because it turns damage into healing. The thing that actually makes Coil unique is the fact that he has more than 2 modes, and if you count his finisher, he has 4 total modes. I'm willing to bet that this literally will never happen again, because the Roblox Coil gear, as far as I know, is the only gear that has so many different modes and would be able to be integrated into fighting without being broken. For the limited resources they had making Coil's moveset, they did a really good job. 7 out of 10 uniqueness. So when you go on Coil's wiki page, you see literally no information on his lore and personality yet. That's probably because he's the newest fighter, but please, it's been 5 months. Can we get some information now? I had to search through the dialogue just to find out all the information on his lore and personality. Skateboard is his best friend. Subspace is his enemy. He seems neutral about Medkit but confused on what's happened to him in the past, and doesn't like Banhammer because Banhammer is the warden and has probably arrested him before. But Banhammer recognizes that Coil only steals from noblemen and the Blackrock government, which probably points toward the fact that Coil is trying to steal from the rich people to give it to the poor. Coil's very arrogant and very overconfident in his abilities. And the reason why he's enemies with Subspace is because he stole one of Subspace's crystals. The same crystals that Subspace and Medkit used to power up their gears and make the Biografts. I was able to analyze a lot from the dialogue alone, so maybe I'll just start doing that, but then again, I can't really do that because this is literally the very, very end of the series. Anyway, 7.5 out of 10 lore and personality. After hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of work, I did it. I didn't really have to do that much work to compile all this stuff up. It took me like 2 to 3 hours in order to do all this. But still, just making the videos individually, yeah, that took a very, very long time. Probably took me around like 35 to 40 hours total to make this video and all the individual ones, and I think it's been worth it. I mean, I've been getting some pretty good views. I feel like I should be getting more for the amount of work I'm doing, at least compared to some of my lower quality videos. But then again, a lot of those lower quality videos were just small things about fighting that were prominent and important for the community at the time. So yeah, I'm gonna stop talking so much and let you leave, so goodbye.